Okay, now we're going to see if we can get the original oil pressure gauge functioning on the original gauge cluster. The previous owner installed a mechanical oil pressure gauge there under the dash. So when I purchased it, the oil pressure gauge was not functioning. I'm not sure if that's because the gauge itself is completely dead or if he just preferred the mechanical setup. Either way, I would like to get that gauge functioning again like it's supposed to. So currently, if I reach in and turn the ignition on, you'll see the fuel sending unit climbing there. So that gauge is climbing. And the oil is dead, of course, because the engine's off. But to test that gauge, what we're going to do is just go underneath the hood, and we're going to take that original sending unit wire for that gauge, and we're just going to ground it out. With the ignition on, that gauge should go all the way to hot if it is functioning correctly. If the gauge itself works, then we will pull that mechanical gauge out, reinstall a proper sending unit, and hook it back up, and hopefully get that gauge functioning like it's supposed to again. So with that being said, let's jump under the hood and connect a ground wire. Okay, we're back under the hood of the Land Cruiser here. You can see this is the original wire that attaches to the sending unit that is supposed to be down there below that oil filter. We'll be reinstalling that. You'll have to excuse some of the wiring. I just recently purchased this, and although it's fairly tidy, there's a few things that still need attention. So anyways, we're going to take this sending unit wire here, and we're just going to ground it out. So we'll attach the ground, and then we'll jump back in, turn the key on, and if the gauge is functioning correctly, it should go all the way to hot. So let's go in there and check it out. Okay, we're back in the Land Cruiser. I'm going to reach up and turn the ignition on, and hopefully we'll see that oil pressure gauge go all the way to hot. So, and it's moving. Perfect. Nice. So it is going right to hot. So that is a quick test. The gauge itself is functioning. So the next step will be to remove the connection for that mechanical gauge and reinstall a pressure sending unit. And we will connect it back up, start the engine, and see how that works. So here is the oil pressure sending unit I'm getting ready to install. You can see how the factory wiring just clicks on to the top of that sending unit, and this particular sending unit threads in right down at the bottom. If you look all the way down here, you'll see a little oil pressure line right there. That's going to that mechanical gauge inside the cab. And let's see if I can get down here enough to see that. So right where that connection is right there, that is where the sending unit is going to go. So we're going to remove that connection and install that sending unit, and then we will start it up and see what we get. Okay, so the new oil pressure sending unit is installed. So we'll reach in, start it up, and see what happens. Fuel's coming up, and oil pressure is coming up. Looks like it's stopping just about half on the needle there. So the mechanical, at cold idle like this, the mechanical gauge was reading about 50 psi. So evidently with this particular gauge, 50 psi is right in the middle. And it was idling about 25 psi hot. So once I drive it around a little bit, I'll see what the needle looks like hot, and that should be 25. So I have a mental reference, I guess, of where 50 and 25 psi is. So yeah, gauges are working. That is great. And now just to go drive it around and make sure it stays that way.